skirting around the issue, pretending that it never happened, I'm not gaining any trust. It's not coming back. It's going to take a lot longer. You don't get to ask questions. That was for a longer presentation. So, if you are scared about being in a lawsuit because you're not following an IEP, or just because somebody told you you should be scared about a lawsuit, you don't need to be. Parents like me are way too busy. If I could sue your ass, I would. But I just don't have the time. I don't have any money, because I'm spending all my money trying to find a pair of jeans that doesn't scratch my kid and make him throw a fit on the floor. We're an exhausted group of parents. We just want you to follow the IEP like we all said it was going to be followed. This was a pretty significant document. I mean, we were all sitting in that room. We all said that's what we were going to do. We signed the thing. Seemed pretty important. It's a little bit like the speed limit. We all intend to follow it. We know it's the best thing to do. It's the law. But sometimes a cop needs to remind us of it once in a while, and that's what I tell parents. You need to check up, make sure everybody knows you value the IEP and you value them as educators too. And you are glad they're doing what they're doing. It's a whole trust thing. So kind of like the speed limit. We all intend to follow it. We can't follow it all the time. So questions, you don't get to ask them. You can ask a question at any time, okay? But not right now. Accommodations and modifications. So these are some basic things. So I have two different kids, and so some of these are for one, some of them are for the other. A sound system. I think I got a lot of nods in the first session that you have a sound system maybe in every class. So the teacher wears the blah, blah, you get what I'm saying? That is a great thing for my son with CAPD. You don't have to filter out all this noise because the teacher is amplified. It's so great and helpful for him. There's no yelling. The teacher doesn't have to yell over all these kids. She just talks, and then it's in the center of the room amplified. I love it. Little things, wishbone pencil, visual schedule, preferential seating. So if you're Charlie right now and this is the classroom and I'm the teacher, the best spot is right there. He was sitting here for math. What's the problem in math? We keep losing him in math. What's wrong with math? It seemed perfect because she could give a little, pay attention. Charlie, what's the answer? A little rub, whatever. But then when she turns this way, she loses eye contact. So there was a definite improvement in math when he was more engaged and stayed focused when he was over there. So the preferential seating, it might be here. But for him, for that subject, it was over there. If you have a kid that's leaving the classroom all the time for services and they're in and out a lot, or it might be somewhere else. If they always need a para next to them, it might be somewhere else. They maybe need a little more space. If they have a different kind of chair, whatever. So preferential seating is different for everybody. Social stories, I carry a notepad with me all the time. I write social stories for everything new. It doesn't have, you don't have to be an artist. Stick figures, simple drawings with little sentences, keywords. Once a kid can trust a social story, you can use it for anything. If the social story ends with, "We will eat popcorn," make sure you have popcorn. And once they learn they can trust the social story, you can use them to describe anything that's really going to be okay. Okay, Charlie, there's going to be an assembly today. No horns. There are no horns in this assembly. You get to the assembly, no horns. You're building a trust in that strategy of using a social story. But what happens if you can't control it? Mr. Olson gets everybody's attention by blowing a horn. Kind of ruined it for us on that one. You have to be able to control it a little bit and use it to build the trust. Video modeling, I have a couple examples to show you of that. That's been a great strategy. Headphones. So with perfect pitch, fire drills, things like that, they need to be available for those times of loud noises when you can't escape. So if you ever see a kid trying to run out of a room, often it's something's going on. He can't tell you what it is. So he's going to try to run away. What do most people tend to do? Grab the kid? That would bug me. I might hit you. Probably what a kid tries to do. And you have to really back up. What led to that? It's not the running. It's not the grab. There's something else that happens. So to work backwards to figure that out. Timer causes Kenny so much anxiety, he can't even finish his work. How much time is left? How much time is left? It takes him 5 extra minutes just because he can't stop focusing on the timer. Parasupport, slant, I can never remember what that stands for, but there's a poster of it later, so I'll be able to tell you. And walk. Those are 2 strategies that teachers used. They were suggested by a consultant. Here, why don't you use slant in the classroom? Teach it to the whole class. And it will be for Charlie, but the whole class can benefit. Here's our school district hallway. All the hallways were painted white like that, and there were several, and they all looked the same. So they painted this stripe down each one, a purple, a red, whatever. So that, every time Charlie would leave the classroom for music or OT or PT or whatever it was, he'd stick his eyeball up on that stripe, smoke a little pot, all the way to OT. It was the perfect stim for him. Perfect. Right at eye level. So think of how well you would do in OT. You get out in the hallway, smoke pot the whole way. And then how does OT go for you? Not so hot. So I wanted to paint the whole school, but they didn't let me do that. The OT suggested, let's fill his hands. So she had him carry these baskets all the way to OT, and it was gone. He tried the first couple times as hard as he could to stack those boxes in one arm so he could get that pot going on in the other, and he couldn't. He had to use both hands. So it serves several purposes. Now he's engaged with the therapist, or the whatever she is, OT, therapist, the whole way, and doesn't stim, and is a lot more engaged during that therapy time. Here's slant. So a big poster, sit up, so the whole class, S, sit up, so the whole class learns, that means sit up. Do you do this in your school? Oh, never mind then. Okay, brain gems. Charlie will do a couple little chair push-ups, cross his feet, stand with his feet crossed, something that engages both sides. It takes about 10 seconds and just helps to gain focus. Here's a reward with a purpose. So every day, this was like 2nd grade, he had to pick a pier. They would take the recycling box down to the high school, which was attached. He has to walk backwards, and his hands are occupied, so he has to talk to the pier. This is very rewarding for Charlie, sitting in a big box, and then they would cover him with balls or bean bags. He loved that. He would work for it. You do a good job in Fayed, we'll cover you with bean bags. Do not do that to me. So it served a couple purposes, though. He really craves sensory input. So if you've got a kid that every time they talk to you, they're kind of hanging on you, or they're leaning on you, or they're a little too close, or they run into stuff, lots of things, lots of different things. Often they're craving that sensory input. So sit on them, do whatever you want. Get them, have them lift your desk. Some heavy work is really helpful because their body is craving that. It's a lot more enjoyable for him to read when he's in a beanbag because his whole body is being touched by that beanbag instead of just your butt on the top of a hard seat. So he's getting all that input on more body surface. I do not like this either, the body sock. But Charlie can push out, and there's a force pushing him back in. I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about sensory integration or occupational therapy, but these things are very helpful to him, to know where he is in space. This also, not motivating. Do not stick me in a tunnel and roll me around the room. I will throw up right on you, but Charlie loves that. Music program. Charlie cannot participate. Again, the perfect pitch. You'd think he'd be the star of the show, but he can't. That little girl with the microphone, oh, she thinks she's good. And her mom thinks she's awesome. She does not have perfect pitch, and Charlie knows it. So his job for this program, he would hold the flag with 2 hands. Then he couldn't stim. He also couldn't cover his ears, and he looked great. This is a math meeting. Our curriculum in our school district is SACS on math, and part of that, you start with a math meeting in the beginning of the day, talking about the weather, math, I guess you're talking about math. So every day a kid is the math kid of the day. So he gets to see kids doing this every day. Then it's his turn. Well, these other kids have already modeled it perfectly for him, so now he knows what to do. That's his chair. Loves the swing. Gym class. a great break of the day. So he can participate in all of these things now. He's come a long way from kindergarten, sitting on a Para's lap and licking her or whatever, to being able to do these things by himself. I can't remember why I put this in here, but it's cute. This is the mother hen of our school, Carly. Oh, she will boss him around like nobody's business. She's perfect. Learning backwards, this is a strategy we use for almost everything. So here's a spelling word, and you can use this for whatever you have. The first group was elementary, preschool teachers, and I know you're not that. You're something else. You're college something, second level. So the first word is start. Everybody knows that start starts with an S. You don't need to test that. It ends with a T. Fill in the T. Spot ends with a T. Radio. Fill in the O. The next time you practice spelling, take out a couple more letters. You can give the first letter of any vocabulary word. This is, first grade. But if you have a sophomore or a freshman, you can give the first letter of any answer. You need to know that they know the vocabulary word. You don't need to know that they can spell it. You want to test their knowledge. Same thing, backwards learning, tying shoes, brushing teeth, putting on a coat. So you put on the coat, you zip it to here. Charlie zips it to here. The next time, when he can do that well, then you start having him zip it from here. Same thing with tying shoes. Have him do the very last step. Once he can do the last step, have him do the last 2 steps. Kids will never perform higher than the expectation. Okay, a few of them will, and they're annoying. But you need to have the expectation very high. If you think that Charlie will not answer a question all day and will stim all day, that's what he will do, and that's what he would love to do. I'll give you 2 examples. Charlie was tying his shoes in OT. It was a huge OT goal, and I kind of brag about this OT. I'll have to tell her that sometime, that I think she's a good one. So we're in an IEP meeting, and the OT says, okay, Charlie has this shoe tying goal, and he can do it. But I see people tying his shoes all the time. He can do it. We've been working on it for 2 years, whatever. And the para said, oh, yeah, but he can't tie them tight enough. He likes them really tight. And the teacher's like, yeah, no, we can't. We're all just, no, he can't do that. And the OT stood her ground, and he can do this. And I'm sure she's thinking, Lord, people, I've been working on this with this kid for 2 years. Let the kid tie his shoes. So we kind of made a pact. It was almost like we all put our hand in. Yes, we won't tie his shoes. Next morning on the way to school, I said, Charlie, this morning I put my shoes on. I tied them myself. Kenny tied his shoes himself. Dad tied his shoes himself. When you get to school, you will tie your own shoes. And he says, but what about the Wendy? That's his para. And all of a sudden I thought, ooh, Charlie thinks the para is like his maid or something. And she will do whatever he doesn't want to do. I knew she was going to have a hard time. And she would be the one we needed to support with this. It would be much easier just to tie the shoes than to suffer with him. So I asked her at the end of the day, how did it go? Well, by the end of the day, it was fine. But the first 2 times, I wanted to start on a day where we didn't have Fayed. So he had to change his shoes. And at one point, he was down on one knee with both hands in a prayer. Please, Wendy. And she didn't. She didn't tie his shoes. And the next day, he was a shoe buddy. And he was tying classmates' shoes. So think of what came of that. He's now helping other kids. He has a skill they don't have. It really put him up the ladder a little bit among his peers. So it was a great thing. The next thing was cursive writing. That was coming up in 3rd grade. Oh, Charlie can't do that.